My name is Diana Chiari. I'm an artist who works in printmaking, drawing, and animation, and I'm also faculty at Emily Carr University. Coming soon is a year-long public art project funded by the City of Vancouver Public Art Program, where I am making handmade posters, hand-printed posters, and placing them around the city at various construction sites. I'm originally from Jakarta, Indonesia. My father worked for the Department of Foreign Affairs in Indonesia, so we moved around quite a bit. Most of my life I've lived in large urban centers. And I also grew up with a mother who didn't drive and still doesn't drive, and I also don't know how to drive. And so most of my experiences in those cities was shaped by walking and transit. The way that I orient myself to places is through the architecture and the roads. And how that's impacted this project is that as I walk through Vancouver, even though I've been here for 13 years, I still feel relatively new to the city because the markers keep changing. And so that sense of where I am is always impacted by how a building or a corner or a street has changed and what has flowed through there. And that impacts my sense of connection or orientation to the space. When I think about the development that's happening in the city, what strikes me is how it seems to be heading in the same direction as cities like San Francisco, and how so many people have been displaced through this gentrification and development, and that there's a sense that there's only a particular class of people that will be able to afford to live in these particular spaces. It may not be evident to anyone walking by, but these prints are made through incredibly long and labor-intensive processes. There's a lot of craft that goes into it, a lot of care that goes into it. And then I'm putting them into the space where I know they'll be destroyed by the elements, by rain, by dirt, etc. I'm hoping that people might notice at some point that what is in this space and what is being treated as everything else in that space is actually the result of a great deal of care and attention. Prints always exist in the many, so you make a print because you can have 100 of an image as opposed to just one. And then the perception is when you have 100 of something, it's somehow less valuable than when you have just one of something. So initially, when I proposed the project, I was thinking about how would a handmade artifact interact with these spaces that had all these commercially produced objects that were about desire and selling things, and to put in something that wasn't about commerce or capital or selling anything. The one thing that started making me look at construction sites more closely is how they interrupt the pedestrian in their day-to-day travels. So you're walking down the street, you've got your path, your body remembers that path, and then suddenly you're stopped by a sign that says, danger, do not cross, sidewalk closed, etc. And so I'm interested in these interruptions and how they are kind of a shock to your bodily memory. That sense of anxiety for me is encapsulated in the tree protection that you see in Vancouver, where you'll be walking down the street and then a tree will suddenly be marked off and delineated with this kind of orange fence. It's a fairly common occurrence to walk down a residential street, see a tree protector go out, walk by that street 2 weeks later, the house is gone, walk by there in a few months and there's a whole new type of structure coming up. And so for me the anxiety begins there. And so the very first print in the series is a structure for a sign, which we often see as the development application announcement or the announcement of a future project where there's an advertising of a promise of what will be there. I like the fact that these works are on spaces that are temporary, so construction sites, there's sort of these spaces in between. Something was there before, that thing is now gone, something new is coming up. And so in this kind of in-between space, these prints have been entered into it. And some people may walk by and not even notice that they're there. But others might walk by 50 times and suddenly one day be like, wait, how long has this been there? Rather than a specific reaction, I'm hoping that it mimics my own experiences of navigating urban spaces where we become so used to certain paths, certain ways of being, certain ways of existing in our spaces that sometimes we don't notice these changes until it's too late. And so what happens when we notice them, and what do we do about that?